All right. Welcome back to the Sean Trey Show, and I have a lovely guest, Miss Louise Alston. Now, can you tell the guests a little bit about who you are and what you do?
Sure. Well, I'm actually Dr. Louise Alston.
Forgive me.
And, and that, yes, I did my PhD just so that I could get the title.
I love that.
Only reason. Because I don't like Miss, I don't like Mrs. I'm Doctor. That's the only reason.
No, not Dr. Alston. What did you? What did you?
Nobody calls me that in real life. Like,
no, really?
Yeah, it's like there's no occasion to like. I thought that's gonna be fun, but then like sometimes you get it's an option when you're booking an airline ticket, but like
I remember there was one day that I was working as an actor on set. And I was cast in this role of a doctor.
Yeah.
And it was interesting because even when we weren't rolling, for that day, everyone called me doctor. And, they're like, a doctor, could you sit over here? And I was like, I like this. I really like this. And I've kind of got in the back burner. I was like, I really need to get my PhD since then. It's been
fun. Well, maybe I have to go on set. I do go on set, but I don't know. My friend, an old friend that I went to film school with kind of stopped being a filmmaker, and now she's a barrister in London.
Really?
Doing human rights law.
That's awesome.
And she said that there's a club that her aunt goes to and is a member of, like one of these very snooshy clubs. And when they go to dinner there, they get announced.
Oh.
Dame and Miss.
Oh.
I said, well, you're going to have to take me there so that I can finally be announced the proper way.
That's amazing. That is amazing. Oh, wow. I am rolling in the wrong clubs right now. All the clubs I've been in, there's nothing fun like that.
Oh, she got off the, it's very interesting, she got off the filmmaking bandwagon and decided to make a difference in the world. So
that's awesome. Well, a question for you. What is your doctorate in?
Well, my doctorate's in feminist screen studies, really, and creative practice.
That's
so
really interesting.
Well, what I did was I looked at noir films and neo-noir film, where there is a femme fatale and a female protagonist.
Okay.
So usually you've got like a male protagonist who's looking and searching and viewing, and then he comes across the femme fatale who's transgressive woman, and through the story she is processed to be either rehabilitated, such as at the end of LA Confidential, when Russell Crowe takes takes her off to have a dress shop in the middle of America. So she's thoroughly rehabilitated, or she's punished, just eliminated, like at the end of Chinatown.
Interesting.
So, and then I looked at different noir films or films that use noir elements. And films I looked at were Mulholland Drive, Single White Female, In the Cut, the Jane Campion film.
Yeah.
And Black Swan.
Okay.
And all of these have like a female protagonist and a femme fatale. And what happens in these films is, instead of it being a dichotomy of the man and the woman, like a kind of recreation of patriarchy in film, it becomes a kind of becomes a mirror. And so their identity starts to merge. So and there's like the famous shots in Mulholland Drive and Single White Female where they look the same, the same looks.
Yes.
Where it's literal, and the looking in mirror, they're both looking into the mirror. It's all like this.
It's in there.
Looking and looked at, and the female experience of looking and looked at, and And so instead of like identifying with the man, a little bit with the woman, but then she gets raped and murdered and killed or rehabilitated, and then you go back to the man. This time you're the woman, and you're looking at the other woman, and you start to incorporate her experience of being transgressive, and then you have this more complete picture of being a woman cinema viewer. And in the end, the protagonist often absorbs the transgressive woman.
It's really interesting.
So
I really need to rewatch some of these movies. No, that's amazing to me. There are these really interesting. I'm trying to figure out how to say it. Archetypes in film that I studied often. The one that I come back to is Joseph Campbell's The Hero's Journey, and that's something that I've always been a big fan of. But this is a whole new archetypal journey of sorts that I haven't even looked at and I haven't even heard about. That's really interesting. Now, are people? I mean, albeit I haven't really gone into this aspect of writing as much. I'm just beginning my screenwriting journey. I'm doing my master's in screenwriting right now. It was something that thank you. I've been really enjoying it, and though there is a rabbit hole to go down, and I've been looking at the rabbit hole lately and going, I really, really need to deep dive. But you write quite a bit, correct?
I think I've always written. I was one of those, prolific child writers. And then I kind of stopped. I think I started being very self-conscious in my teens and sort of stopped writing. But then I started again. And part of that was because I had a major accident in 2001. And we're recording this on the 20th anniversary of September 11.
Yeah.
But my accident happened in January that year. So there's something about the 20 years.
Right.
I'm kind of, it's like, when it happened, I was bedbound. Anyway, being bedbound, I was all ready to go into television, and I was making documentary, and interested in doing some comedy and that sort of stuff. But then I just, I was stopped in the way I guess everybody's been stopped in the last couple of years because of the pandemic.
Right.
So so I just had to recreate what I wanted, what was possible to do. So
it's really interesting that you there's a writer named Brian Alliday, and he has these books on like a type of neo-stoicism, and there's one book that I enjoy of his. I'm not into everything he writes, but there's one book that's called The Obstacle is the Way, and his essential theory, the essentially idea behind the book is that many of the greatest people in history, many of the greatest inventions, many of the greatest companies came about because of some type of obstacle that was dropped in the lap of the person, and then they had to adapt.
Totally, and that is absolutely true of filmmaking. Have you ever seen Lars von Trier's 7 Obstacles?
No, I haven't. I have to, and I have a strong Danish connection. My my best friend is Danish, and I love Danish films, so I haven't seen that. The 7 again. What was the title of it?
It's called the 7 Obstacles. I don't know.
I'm looking this up. I'm going to find this after we're done.
It is the 7. It's not like the 5 or something.
Okay.
So people watching this, it's Lars von Trier.
I'll have a pop-up. I'll have a pop-up. So.
Anyway, so it's and so the idea is that it's supposed to be Lars von Trier's diabolical experiment, where he goes to his one of his mentors, who won I think a Palme d'Or with his fabulous short film, and so he challenges him to remake the film with 7 different obstacles.
That's awesome.
And so, like, One, he says you got to make it in Cuba.
Oh.
And then, so he has to work out how to get there, how to film there, who's he going to use, like who's he going to cast? He ends up casting himself. It's just crazy. So and then he does he does an animation. The guy hates animation. So there's just like, and every time, like, you know, of course it's part of the theatrics. The mentor's going, no, you're doing it, no. So it's fabulous. So, and the idea being that that every time you come up against an obstacle, you have to think of you have to keep thinking. How are we going to do it? What are we going to do? What do we have? And there's something about dogma film and that Danish way of directing, of making films, that was big in the 90s, was making films with what you have.
Yeah.
And it came about as a reaction to just the $100 million American film.
Yeah.
And they said, well, what if we go back to the story and use what we have to make the story? So so I got really inspired by that. And yeah.
No, that's awesome.
It's a great way of thinking. It empowers you. It means that you can go forward and make things.
Exactly. So. And I feel like we're entering not a golden age of filmmaking, but a golden age of do-it-yourself filmmaking, where, you know, I've spoken with people about this. 20 years ago, making your own film was much more prohibitive because you had this obstacle of getting into the realm of getting that cinema camera, you know, and, you know, buying the film. And that was a very prohibitive thing. But, you know, for $1,500, you can buy a camera that has the quality of what they were shooting on 20 years ago.
Yes.
And you know, if you just rent it, you know what I mean? And then there are creatives that have that gear. You know, you can find.
You've got a payment plan and it comes with your phone. You know,
exactly.
It's possible. So
it is.
And there's something very daunting about having and just knowing that it becomes, it's too hard. There's no obstacle there. You have to think about, okay, what do I have to do to go forward then if there's just so much available. So what can I do? What story can I make?
Go on, sorry.
What are the obstacles I'm going to put in front of myself? What is the story I want to make, and how? Yeah, so it's very invigorating.
And that 7 obstacles is just so intriguing as well, because those obstacles make a good story as well. I was trying to tell, you know, some of my students that I've talked to about writing in the past. I've taught extensively in Asia, you know, as an English teacher for a long time, and that's, even though I worked in film, it was something that I've always had just to do because I enjoy teaching and I love to share, especially creative writing. It's one of my favorite things to share. And I would tell, you know, some of my students, you know, imagine you start your story off, you know, like my wife and daughter are in the high rise next door. Well, if I walk over there, press the button, I go and get them and come down, you know, it's not very interesting of a story. I just walk in and I go up the elevator and I come down. Well, you know, the building's on fire, you know, or, you know, and then, you know, you add zombies, you know, and let's make it, you know, something that's, why do I have to save them? What if I'm in the top of the building and they come save me? You know, you add these different layers of storytelling and these obstacles that, you know, I'm the one that's incapacitated. You know, there's my obstacle there. You know, I can't do anything. I'm stuck myself. And so every obstacle that you add suddenly adds a level of richness, adds a level of something that your character has to overcome to achieve this goal. And I think that those obstacles are just so enriching to what we go through and what our character goes through. What is your so did you study writing in university? How did you become the writer that you are now?
Well, I did a course at UCLA.
Okay.
There was a moment when the Australian dollar could buy a lot of American dollar. And so I went, I've got to do something with this. And so I looked into, and I found into studying, and I found that there was, I could do the UCLA professional program online.
Nice.
And so I had weekly lectures online video, and then this was way back in 2011.
Nice.
So we had a group with a teacher who would we would write 10 pages a week, and we'd read everybody's pages and discuss. And we had such a great group.
That's awesome.
There was such a fabulously diverse group. There was somebody from South Africa. There was a couple of people in LA. There was somebody in New York. There was somebody in the green zone in Baghdad.
Really?
Seriously.
That's interesting.
So it was amazing.
That's really awesome. Now, what is? I'm going to kind of shift into a slightly different direction. What is your writing process? How do you approach writing?
Well, I can only binge writing. Like, there's people who say I have to do 3 pages a day. I can only sort of say, okay, I've got to do this in a month. And so there's a sense of urgency created, and so
it's an obstacle.
Yeah. Or I go away for a weekend, and I have to come back with the second act. You know, so that's kind of how I do it. I will start by writing the idea, separating it into acts and beats and scene by line, and then little bit by scene, and then I will start to do them act by act.
Do you do a lot of character biographies beforehand? Do you dive into each character, really work them out, or do you work more with a story?
More with the story. I think my characters tend to come complete. So, and anything that, or they start to talk and I learn more about them, you know, it's kind of part of it for me.
I'm with you. When I kind of, I don't know how to explain this. I kind of run off my intuition. I see it up here. And as I'm seeing it, I'm just trying to put down what's coming. Though I'm working from an outline, I just try to then visualize each scene. And that's always been my creative process. Though I know some writers who, one of my friends, you know, will do almost these backstories, these very creative backstories, and before getting into the work. Now, what are some of the things that inspire you when you write? What are some of the things that you go to find that inspiration?
Well, I sort of go around with ideas for a long time. And they sort of formulate, like, for a long time, I guess. I don't know that there's... And every now and then I have, like, a eureka moment of an idea for something. But I don't really know what the inspiration is.
All right, well, how about I shift the question a little bit? What films have inspired you? Or what genre? So let's start with films first. We'll move to genres later.
Can I tell you my party game?
I'd love to hear it. I'd love it.
It's... Tell me the 5 films that, if you were trapped on a desert island with no way of contacting anybody...
I love this.
...that you would take. So the idea for that is it has to be something that sustains you. So let's do it. I'll do it to you. What are the top 5 films?
Oh my gosh.
I
was not ready for this. Okay.
Well, this will come.
All right, you know what?
Films
if I'm stuck on a desert island, and I know this is going to sound silly, but I love magic. And number 1, I'm going for Harry Potter. Even though it's... And because, albeit, I think the Lord of the Rings are better movies, they don't necessarily uplift me all the time. I'm stuck on a desert island. I want something light and happy, and I think I'm going for Harry Potter.
First
Harry Potter. Okay. Hands down, a movie that I would watch probably, and that might not be something I watch every day, but I would want to have it. Movie I'd watch almost every day would be The Life Aquatic.
Great, love it.
And oh man, I'm a huge Zissou fan. Steve Z is one of my idols, and just such a flawed character, beautifully flawed character. Oh God, I'm dating myself, but it's silly. I think that I would go for something silly.
You say childhood ones, they're just as valid.
No, but like if I'm on a desert island and it's things, because I mean I would love to say Gangs of New York. I would love to say things like that. There will be blood, but they're not sustaining. That would be like I'm on a desert island.
Sometimes you need something nutty though, like something that's a bit crunchy. So.
I was going to say something silly like a Karate Kid or...
Great.
I'm going to go
say...
That's
a perfect movie. Huh? That's a perfect screenplay.
I love that movie.
It's a great screenplay. If you're learning to write screenplays, watch that.
Okay. I will watch it. Rewatch it again. I got to read the screenplay then.
Yeah.
And then stuff that's just going to be... Oh man, I'm getting to the end of them.
Do you want to put Gangs of New York? Do you want to put that
I'm going to put Gangs of New York in there. Yeah. I'll put in Gangs of New York and Last of the Mohicans.
Last of the Mohicans. That's a good one.
I love Daniel Day-Lewis, and that movie just...
the ending.
Right. So can I show you about the ending?
Yeah.
Not that I was anything to do with that, but that ending was a place that I used to always live. That waterfall is a place called Chimney Rock, and we would hike it every weekend when I was a child.
Wow.
So you can walk, where Uncas falls off the side.
Yeah.
You can walk along that. There's railings there. Normally they have railings up so that you can't, step outside and fall down yourself. But you can walk that whole walk all the way out to the waterfall. Oh yeah. It's Chimney Rock, North Carolina.
Wow.
If you ever get to go back to the States, Chimney Rock, North Carolina.
And when the Englishman sacrifices himself.
Yep. Oh my gosh. The whole song. So many great moments.
And then there you go, mate. Oh my God. Oh my God.
So many scenes. Yeah, right? Right?
Anyway.
Those are my 5.
Yeah. Well, those are really good. That's a really good collection. Now, what do they have in common? They're all telling the same story. What is that story?
I would say overcoming adversity.
Yeah. There's something about
but it's also the character.
Special chosen one.
Yeah.
The special chosen one. The Zissou, the Harry Potter, the Last of the Mohicans, the Gangs of New York, the one.
There's a chosen child. There's a chosen. That was also lost.
Demands to be the chosen one. In the Gangs of New York. So there's something about being the special one.
Interesting. And the one that was on the outskirts was also the one that I had over here that was like, pick me, has the same theme, which was the Matrix.
Yeah. Oh. But he's so special. He's special. It's like you think you're ordinary, but no, you're special. So there's something about being the special one. And what happens to the special one? The special one is
transformed in all of them. There's a transformation process, which comes back to I love the hero's journey. I love that because again, also in the same tone of that would be Star Wars.
Right. Yeah. Well, think about it. Think some more about that because it's really good. There is something that Zissou has with Last of the Mohicans. Like there is
interesting.
Yeah, it's so good. It's so good. Of course, Last of the Mohicans ends up being his father, but...
yeah, right? It does end up being his father, but he's still... And that's kind of the plot twist. He was supposed to be the chosen one, but yet the story, you find...
It ended up being Joe Biden all along. But anyway, it's something really special about doing that.
Right.
With me, I did that challenge, and I think when I first did that challenge, maybe 10 years ago, I came up with the films at the time were like The Piano, Strictly Ballroom.
Interesting.
I think even Big Business with Bette Midler.
Yeah.
And it's a fabulous movie. And
Bette Midler's fabulous.
Oh my God, it's such a great movie, and it so stands up. It is on your streamer. Watch it. It is it's a perfect movie. Anyway, because I was a girl from a farm who longed to go to New York City, just like Bette Midler, I identified with that character.
That's awesome.
Because I thought I was fabulous, right?
Yeah.
So with all of my stories, I realized that it's the story of somebody who goes on a journey to find what they already have, to find the thing that they already have. They already have the thing that they need.
That's so interesting.
So with the piano, she thinks her voice is the piano. Mm-hmm. But then in the end, she cuts the piano loose into the depths and swims back up and learns to speak.
That's right.
So, and with Strictly Ballroom, it was always about, wanting to be the dancer. Actually, it's the Spanish dancing that you've always had. Yeah. It's the steps that you can make. That's what you need. And so it's like, I can't even remember all the other films. Oh yeah, Secret of Rowan Inish.
Oh, I've never seen that one.
Oh, it's fabulous, and it's the story of a little girl goes back to an island where her family had all sort of gone from. Okay. Because I think it was from disease or something, but and they lost a little boy. And they find that the little boy had been there all along, being cared for by Silkies. Wow.
I will look that up. You are giving me a list that I need to deep dive in.
Yeah, watch that movie. It is, it's amazing.
You know, one of the stories that just comes to mind when you talk about finding what you've always had, it always reminds me of The Hobbit. Because the original title of The Hobbit was There and Back Again. And the whole idea was of this: you come back and then you've been changed. You have then, and one of the interesting things that I always, because that's a key part of the hero's journey, is one of the most important parts of that story is always reintegrating with that new knowledge into your new old society. Because you aren't necessarily the same person that you thought you were. It's that analogy of a person enters the stream, and are you, the same person that you were when you left? Well, in ways you're not. In ways that you have to find how to approach the farm differently, the countryside differently. So, very interesting stuff. You are giving me. It's only 7:18 in the morning here, and I am thoroughly entertained. That's awesome. So can you tell me about what you've written recently? What are some of the things that you've worked on recently?
Sure. Well, lately I've been writing a gothic paranormal romance.
Oh my gosh, that's awesome.
Which is a kind of, and it's kind of set in the rural community where I grew up, and part of it is about a girl who doesn't understand what's going on with herself, and so and in today's world, that girl would Google and find her people.
Yeah, right.
But I realized that I had to make this a period film and set it in 1990, where
1919 or 1990?
1990.
Oh my, okay.
As in like 30 years ago.
Yeah.
So, in a world where the only communications from your house is the telephone in the hallway.
Yeah.
Everybody's going to hear your conversation. So, and you go to the school library, and it's kind of not so helpful. So, it's a kind of isolation that isn't there anymore. So
right? People, young kids today, millennials, won't understand that idea of like I remember when I would live in this one area and I was going to go meet my friend in San Francisco, and you had to set a location and a time. And it was like, I will meet you at at Pier 39 in front of the seal, at the statue of the seal at, 3:45. And you get there and you look and you wait for 30 minutes or an hour. And if you don't see them,
yeah. And if they don't come, you wait 30 minutes or an hour. That's exactly right.
And then you would leave. And then that was the
might
time.
Go find a payphone and call their house.
Exactly. Is Tommy there?
And say, did they leave? Are they okay? Because they might have and they said, oh yeah, he just called. The bus broke down.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, I don't know. Yeah. I don't know. And you sort of go, okay. And oh my God, it's amazing. And recently, I've got a 6-year-old daughter. And recently I said to her, we're in the car. I said, did you know that when Mommy and Daddy were little, cell phones had not been invented yet? And her reaction was priceless. It was like, what?
You're right.
And the next line was, how did you watch videos?
Right.
I said, well, we watched television, and it was you get what you get and you don't get upset.
Yeah. And it was a rectangle. It was this horrible. It was like television.
Get what you get. You don't get upset. And if there's and you go to the bathroom during the commercial breaks, mm-hmm. and you can't pause it. You can't go back. If someone's being loud, you missed it.
Yeah. It's so interesting for that because the access to information is so much larger. Now, do you believe in the paranormal? Is this something that you kind of go down? Do you have your own intuition process, or?
Well, I don't know. I seem to find. I seem to get signs. Like I always get. I constantly find single playing cards. Seriously, I find single playing cards on the road in front of me.
You're preaching to the choir on this one.
I understand what? I think I've got one on my thing. Oh yeah, there's one. What is it? The Queen of Hearts.
Nice.
That's nice. But and it's like, why does this happen all? Like it's not just occasionally, all the time.
I'm a huge believer in synchronicity, by the way.
And when I got a new apartment, I walked into the apartment and there was nothing in the apartment but one playing card.
I love it.
What is that? And it was like, I think it was like a 7 of diamonds or something. And I just went, I'm getting pregnant in this apartment. I've been trying for years, and I went, I'm going to get pregnant here.
That's awesome.
Anyway.
No, I it's so interesting because I'm a trained intuitive. I don't talk about that much. Yeah. Mm-hmm. I went to school, intuition school. And for a while when I was in LA, I would do readings for people and things.
Great.
And so your story brings in, it's an interesting thing for me because as a young child growing up in the countryside in a conservative community, and I'm able to see all these interesting things, it was special. And like I don't think it's so, I think humans are like built in with like Wi-Fi. You don't think it's so weird with a computer. Why would it be weird that we have this ability to connect to other things? Mm-hmm. But as a child without access, now with the internet, you can Google what is intuition. Google, and you can find a community. It's the ability to connect with people that make things, that normalize things. And we're talking about, for me, it was intuition that I felt very out. But, we're looking at, now we look at people born into cultures that are very patriarchal, and or look at people that are, their identity, or, people that are LGBT, that are then suddenly looking at, where's my community? The idea that we have the ability to find a community so much more easily is good. But there's also a ton of misinformation as well.
Yeah, you can find the crazy people who also don't want to get vaccinated. Or you can get radicalized in different ways.
That's it.
That was when everyone was sort of saying, this is going to be amazing, the internet's going to be amazing, we didn't realize that people are problematic.
People are that is a lovely way to say it. Well, there are those studies that, and I think that the thing with the internet is it's dopamine. It is pure dopamine.
True, yeah.
And if you look at those studies that they did, I mean, I'm not a huge fan of animal studies, but I think the knowledge gleaned from them is still amazing. And there was this one monkey that was hooked up to a button, pressed a button, and it gave it a shot of dopamine.
Yep.
And it gave it the options of dopamine or food. And the monkey would sit there and essentially stimulate their dopamine until there were nothing left, and they would literally ignore food, ignore everything else, just to have the dopamine. And I think that what we're seeing so often is people just boom, 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 boom. And it's interesting as we look at creators, as writers, how does that affect writing now too? Because people...
That's because creating is where you get your dopamine. Mm-hmm. That's your natural dopamine. So maybe too many people are getting distracted by their Facebooks.
I think so. But I mean, I'm curious how it's going to change storytelling, because, it used to be, you go back and watch. I watched Citizen Kane the other day. It's slow at times. There are moments where a scene is so heavy on dialogue that you're just like, it's horrible. But there were moments where I was just like, no, put it down, don't do it. And I was like, that hand movement was like, God, I gotta get that scroll. And so I wonder how much of our writing now even is heavy on pacing, because we're so conditioned to do that. Now I'm going to come back to let's imagine, we're going to imagine that we popped into the movie Aladdin, the Robin Williams version. I love Robin Williams. Now you have the genie's lamp. What would you... Let's imagine that you can write any story you want. You can tell any story you want. And I'm not going to ask you to tell me your story, but I'm going to say, what type of story would you like to tell? It's going to get made. This will be distributed. This is going to Cannes and Sundance and everything else. Well, that's wonderful.
That'd be fun.
Right?
I'd love to make a film that has fabulous costuming. I'd love to make something
a Moulin Rouge, or like something like like a period piece.
Like a period piece.
Okay.
In my formative years, I watched a lot of Jane Austen adaptations.
Nice.
So I'm into that, but there's a project I've been working on lately, and this may be skewing. It's the project that my husband and I have been sort of putting together, and it was recently optioned. So
congratulations.
What will happen? Thank you very much, and we'll see what happens there. But it's based on a well-known novel, taking what's there already and really just sort of and talking about it. Like the thing about Jane Austen is, yes, they're romances, but if you look, she's talking about the terror of being a woman who cannot feed herself.
Yeah.
Like, it's hardcore. Like, we're not talking about, I can get a job as a secretary even when I'm 65 and unmarried. No. It's like, I have got to get married. It is high stakes, and it's like there's something about Pride and Prejudice, like the sister who marries the terrible guy, the friend who marries a terrible guy just so that she can make sure that she's going to be fed when she's old. And it's just, and she just goes, "Don't judge me."
Yeah.
I'm doing what I have to do, and that is just these are the stakes. These are the stakes.
Yeah,
this girl has, and if she's going to choose to only marry somebody who she respects,
right,
that's a big call to make.
Yeah.
So
I never thought about it that way.
Yeah, so I think if you really dig down on that stuff, and not treat it as fluffy as
right.
But I mean, I love romance. Like I've always loved that stuff. But I love being real about it. So.
Right. It's not all, and that's an interesting point. I live in Vietnam, and one of the things that my wife is a famous celebrity, and she's a highly accomplished singer. She has, and when she goes for interviews, it's one of the interesting things is, how is your marriage? What's it like being married to a Westerner? What's it like? It's not like, what projects are you working on? What are your accomplishments? What are your motivations? They always want to define her through her choice of a spouse. And it's really interesting that, and there's not judgment of that. It is a cultural perspective. But yet we oftentimes attempt, or every culture, every person has a lens that they are viewing someone through. And it is, I wouldn't say rose-colored. It is, whatever color that lens might be, but it literally filters out everything else. And I think that we tend to view romances through a filter, we tend to view a romance through the filter of, this is a romance, it's supposed to make me feel good and make me feel in love and give me that romance dopamine. But the reality is that so many of them show the characters' weaknesses as well. The characters, not shortcomings, but challenges that they have, or obstacles. Coming back to our obstacles, the obstacles to fulfillment. For the friend in Pride and Prejudice, she had the obstacles that were in her way to achieve her goal. I follow, I study the Ivana Chubbuck technique of acting, and Ivana Chubbuck focuses heavily on every character has an overall objective and a scene objective. They're trying to get something throughout the whole script and something in the individual scene. And essentially what makes it interesting is then they have an obstacle that comes into every scene and into the movie that stops them. And that's what creates a rich character, is that you have these goals, and the universe is essentially throwing every last obstacle in your way to make you earn achieving that goal.
Have you my second feature called Juicy, which went to Toronto Film Festival. Thank you. I made that as after I'd been to my first film won a competition. I won a festival in Copenhagen. So I went to Denmark, and I actually visited Lars von Trier's studio, and met
feeling jealous right now.
Met some filmmakers, and anyway, and what's interesting about that is that there's a whole lot of different, like any American studio, there's like different companies within the complex of the campus of the studio, and so, but they all came together in the commissary to have lunch every day, and it was kind of like it was a buffet. And so, and it was really simple. It felt like a school buffet or something. And it was, so it wasn't, like, I've been to like Hollywood studio commissaries where you you get out your credit card and you have this and I'll have this, and like it was like that, and it's free. And so everybody, and I'm looking around, and so everybody from every part of the campus were all sitting around and talking, because there was this one particular lunch hour, and they would all come together and talk. And there was something about that was so creative, because it just developed ideas, and they'd have talking. They'd say, "How is this project going?" And it would just, and it was all these like little pings with each other. That's a very interesting thing.
It's so non-competitive. It's so. Yeah. It's not like, I'm not going to tell you about this because you're, a different group. It's just the idea of creatives helping each other, or just being sounding boards for one another.
Yeah. Like, like even in Hollywood, like, you know, of course there's, and I'm sure there is different personal factions and whatever. Like, but even in Hollywood, you have that. You have people who you talk to and stuff. But in this particular studio, they actually created that space, and it turned out to be a fabulous, creative corporate culture. And but anyway, then and because I sort of learnt all of this stuff, I sort of went, okay, I can make a film about something I already have. And the character goes on a journey to discover what she already has. And so I made a film about these two friends of mine, and dating myself when I say they worked in a Blockbuster, and they would give me they would give me free DVDs, and they got in trouble for it. But anyway, they would sit on my deck. Having beers, enough time, and I just said enough time. And there were two girlfriends, and they treated each other kind of like they were in a romantic relationship.
Interesting.
Like, hey, do you want to do this on the weekend? Oh, I'll see what we're doing. You know, it was really interesting. And it's like, I don't know, the Boston marriage. It's like, it's not so much a lesbian relationship so much as they live together. They are each other's partner, and so I just found it fascinating. I said, so many times I said, I've got to make a movie about you, but eventually I did do it.
That's awesome.
And I decided, okay, I have these actors. If we create these characters with the actors, and just sort of improvise and come up with things. And so I didn't actually do much improvising, but that was but I did sort of write a bit of a scriptment, and then I wasn't feeling very confident about my writing abilities at that stage, and my husband came in and sort of helped me. He sort of wrote it up as a proper screenplay. It was like a scriptment before then. Okay. And then and we applied for some funding from the state government, which had originally been for short films.
Okay.
So I wrote in saying I'd like to use the money to make a video feature.
Nice.
And I said I will use it, and I'll make it with, you know, Dogma style. Use what we have, shoot in our own houses, that kind of thing. And they said, and that year they had taken off the requirement for it to be a short film. Okay. So they thought people would make something interesting, like on the web or something. And so I applied for this, and they said, oh, okay, if you can do it. And so they wanted to have approval of the screenplay. That's why I got my husband in to make a proper screenplay. And so he wrote it up, and we got approved, and we got some money, and so we shot it. And awesome. That is the story. So it's kind of a rom-com, but it's girl meets girl, girl loses girl, girl gets girl back. Awesome. So, and it was always about telling the truth about what was there already. So
that's really cool. That sounds like an awesome story. I got to check it out. Do you have a link to it somewhere?
Sure. It's called Juicy. Jucy. It was on Netflix, but it's not there anymore. So
I will search to see if I can find it.
I've got to have an answer. I think it's on Apple.
Okay. Well, I'll search for it and find it for sure. No worries. Now, one last question before we finish up. What advice would you give to a younger version of yourself before you embarked on this journey? Or during the journey?
I don't know. I think I always made choices with the information I had available at the time.
Well, how about this way? I can reframe it. What advice would you give to other writers that are embarking upon a journey of being a writer?
I would say write the truth, whatever that means, and don't think too much about it. If it's the truth, it will be good. And Yeah, deep dive. Deep dive. Don't think you have to be big, just deep dive.
Yeah.
And yeah, I think all the things I've said.
That's awesome. I really appreciate that. That's awesome. I learned some today. I have definitely when I go through and edit this, I am going to be noting down all of these movie references. And that five movie question is something.
Isn't that good? It's a great party trick.
It's so good. I'm gonna have to ask everyone that from now on and see, because you really can learn a lot about who they are by asking the top 5
and I was walking around going, I don't know, it's kind of about something, and then I went, it's a character who goes on a journey to find the thing they already have.
Wow.
So awesome. You find what it is.
Yeah. It's always in the room that you're in right now. The answers are always nearby. So, well, thank you so much for coming on our show today.
Thank you for inviting me. It's really nice.
Yeah, I find it's fun to just talk to people and hear their stories, because everyone has a beautiful story if you're willing to listen.
Yeah.